Hello everyone and welcome to this video channel Science Class 8. Today let's study chapter number 13 sound. In the previous video class we studied the beginning part of this chapter number 13 sound. Today let's continue this same chapter number 13 sound from textbook page number 187. So from this chapter sound, from the previous video class we learned how sound is produced, and sound needs a medium for its propagation, and vibrating objects produce sound, we learned, and sound needs a medium for its propagation. So these things we have learned. Today let's continue from textbook page number 187. Can you think of an explanation? Say, is it possible that the decreasing amount of air in the tumbler had something to do with decreasing loudness of the ring? So in the previous class we just do an activity there. When cell phone is inside the glass and it is when ring from the another cell phone, then its sound becomes louder, and when the glass which lies a cell phone inside, when we take out the air inside it, and at the time when we ring from another cell phone, then the sound becomes fainter. So this shows that when sound is produced, a medium is necessary. So in that, if you had been able to suck all the air in the tumbler, then you will not listen any sound. So actually sound needs a medium to travel. So when air has been removed completely from a vessel, it is said that there is a vacuum in the vessel. The sound cannot travel through a vacuum. So in the vacuum means it is a medium, there is no presence of air, that is called vacuum. So in the vacuum sound cannot travel, sound cannot produce, sound cannot propagate. So those sound travel in liquids. Let us find out. Activity 13.8. Take a bucket or a bathtub, fill it with a clean water, and take a small bell in one hand. Shake this bell inside the water to produce sound. Make sure that the bell does not touch the body of the bucket or the tube. So here is the activity 13.8. So to do this activity we have to take a bucket or a bathtub and it is filled it with clean water, and we have to take a small bell in one hand and shake this bell inside the water to produce sound, and make sure that the bell does not touch the body of the bucket or the tub. So sound traveling through water. Here sound traveling through water in figure number 13.11. And next, place your ear gently in the water surface. Figure number 13.11. As I have just shown you, be careful, the water should not enter in your ear. Can you hear the sound of the bell? Does it indicate that sound can travel through liquids? So by this activity, then when you shake the bell, yes, you can hear the sound of the bell like this. So here one question. Oh, that is how whales and dolphins might be communicating underwater. This girl say, oh, that is how whales and dolphins might be communicating underwater like that. Let us find out if sound can travel through solids also. So sound can travel through solids also. So let's try to learn about this thing from this activity. Activity 13.9. Take a meter scale or a long metal rod and hold its one end to your ear. Ask your friend to gently scratch or tap at the other end of the scale. In figure number 13.12. You see here. So you have to take a meter scale or a long metal rod and hold its one end of to your ear. One end you have to keep near your ear and ask your friend to gently scratch or tap at the other end. At the other end you have to gently scratch or tap as shown in this figure. Sound traveling through a meter scale. When you gently scratch at the tip of this scale, then that sound can hear at another side. So can you hear the sound of the scratching? Ask your friends around you if they were able to hear the same sound. If they also can hear the same sound. The next page, let's see. Here in the next page, you can also perform the above activity by placing your ear at one end of a long wooden or metallic table and asking your friend to gently scratch the other end of the table. Figure 13.13 is shown like this. So in this figure 13.13, you just see sound can travel through solids. Sound can travel through solids. So here when you scratch at this wooden board, that scratch sound can travel can hear by this boy. So we find that sound can travel through wood or metal. So in fact, sound can travel through any solid. You can perform interesting activities to show that sound can also travel through strings. Sound can also travel through strings. Have you ever met a toy telephone? Say figure 13.13. Figure 13.13 here it is shown. Can you say that sound can travel through strings? So in this figure you can also see sound can travel through a say toy telephone like this. Figure number 13.14, a toy telephone. Here is sound. Here is the string. So we have learned so far that vibrating objects produce sound and it is carried in all directions in a medium. The medium could be a gas, a liquid, or a solid. How do we hear it? So here we have learned so far that vibrating objects produce sound and it is carried in all directions in a medium. So the medium could be a gas, a liquid, or a solid. So how do we hear it? Let's see it. We hear sound through our ears. We hear sound. We hear sound through our ears. Let's see. The shape of the outer part of the ear is like a funnel. Here the shape of the outer part, of the ear is like a funnel, and when sound enters it, it travels down a canal at the end of which there is a thin stretched membrane. It is called the eardrum. It performs an important function. To understand what the eardrum does, let us build a tin can model of the eardrum. So what it says is that when sound enters, it travels down a canal at the end of which there is a thin stretched membrane. So we can hear sound through our ears. So our ears, it is just like a funnel shape. It says, and it performs an important function to understand, to listen. So activity 13.10, let's see what this activity says. So before we do this thing, humans can hear sound through our ears. It is because of the membrane that is called eardrum. So eardrum is present in our human ears. Activity 13.10, let's see. Activity 13.10, what it says. Take a plastic or a tin can. We have to take a plastic or a tin can and cut its ends. Stretch a piece of rubber balloon across one end of the can and fasten it with a rubber band. Put 4 or 5 grains of dry cereal on the stretched rubber. And now ask your friend to speak. Hurry, hurry, from the open end as shown in figure 13.15. So observe what happens to the grain. Why do the grains jump up and down? Here, figure 13.15, understanding action of an eardrum. Understanding action of an eardrum. Here, how this activity performed, let's see again. We have to take a plastic or a tin can and we have to cut its ends and stretch a piece of rubber balloon across one end of the can and fasten it with a rubber band. And after that, put 4 or 5 grains of dry cereal on the stretched rubber. And now ask your friend to speak. Hurry, hurry, and from the open end, as done in this figure number 13.15, and observe what happens to the grain and why do the grains jump up and down. So the grain jumps up and down. Why? Because of the sound, it jumps. So understanding action of the eardrum. So for this activity, plastic or tin can, we have to take a plastic or tin can and we have to cut its ends and stretch a piece of rubber balloon across one end of the can. Across one end of the can, we have to cut its end and we have to stretch a piece of rubber balloon across one end of the can and fasten it with a rubber band and put 4 or 5 grains of dry cereal on the stretch rubber. On the stretch rubber, we have to put 4 or 5 dry cereals. And now ask your friend to speak. Hurry, hurry, like that. Then from the open end, and when they speak like that, then the cereal grain will jump. So it is because of the sound. Okay, next page, let's move on next page. That is the eardrum is like a stretched rubber sheet. Here, here a human eardrum is just like a stretched rubber sheet. Sound vibrations make the eardrum vibrate. So sound vibrations make the eardrum vibrate, is shown in figure number 13.16. Here, the eardrum sends vibrations to the inner ear. From there, the signal goes to the brain. That is how we hear. So this figure number 13.16 shows the human ear. So human ear drum is like a stretched rubber sheet. So when sound vibrations made the eardrum vibrate, and from there the signal goes to the brain, and the brain determine the sound is the nature of the sound is determined by the brain. So a human ear is shown here, and inner part of the human ear is shown here again, and here is the eardrum, and again inner part of the human ear is shown here. So this is the human ear. So we must never put a sharp, pointed or hard thing into our ear, and it can damage the eardrum. The damaged eardrum can impair hearing. So what it says, we must never put a sharp, pointed or hard thing into our ear, because it can damage our eardrum, and the damaged eardrum can impair hearing. So hearing impair is also one of the problem. So when we try to communicate with some other people, if hearing problem is there, then it is not good to communicate with other people. So this time hearing aids and some other devices are developed. So under the strict supervision of the doctor, or the particularly say ENT doctors, we have to consult and we have to use that type of device. So we have learned that here amplitude, time period and frequency of a vibration. Let's see. So amplitude, time period and frequency of a vibration. So these things are associated with the vibration, vibrating objects. We have learned that the to and fro motion of an object is known as vibration. So what is vibration? We have already learned that the to and fro motion of an object is known as vibration. So this motion is also called oscillatory motion. So vibration is also known as oscillatory motion. So let's continue. You have already learned in earlier classes, that means in class 7, about the oscillatory motion and its time period. oscillatory motion and its time period. The number of oscillations per second is called the frequency of oscillation. So the frequency of oscillation is nothing. The number of oscillations per second is called the frequency of oscillation. Frequency is expressed in hertz. So frequency is expressed in terms of hertz, and its symbol is Hz. A frequency of 1 hertz is 1 oscillation per second. So a frequency of 1 hertz means 1 oscillation per second. If an object oscillates 20 times in 1 second, then what would be its frequency? Here one question is there. So you can recognize many familiar sounds without seeing the object producing them. So how is it possible? So these sounds must be different to enable you to recognize them. So have you ever thought what factors make them different? Say amplitude and frequency are two important properties of any sound. So for any sound, amplitude and frequency are two important properties, amplitude and frequency. So can we differentiate sounds on the basis of their amplitude and frequencies? On the basis of their amplitudes and frequencies, can we differentiate sound? So here let's see. Loudness and pitch. Activity 13.11. Take a metallic tumbler and a tablespoon. Strike the tablespoon gently at the brim of the tumbler. So activity 13.11. Here take a metallic tumbler and a tablespoon. Here is the tablespoon, a metallic tumbler, and strike the tablespoon gently at the brim of the tumbler. Here we have to strike the tablespoon gently at the brim of this tumbler. Figure number 13.17. So thermocol bowl touching the vibrating glass tumbler. So it will produce vibration. Next point, page number 190. Let's see. Here the sound produced. Now say bang, the spoon on the tumbler, and here the sound produced again. So is the sound louder when the tumbler is struck hard? Now suspend a small thermocol bowl touching the rim of the tumbler. Figure 13.17. In figure 13.17, figure is there, and vibrate the tumbler by striking it. See how far the ball is displaced. The displacement of the ball is a measure of the amplitude of vibration of the tumbler. So now suspend a small thermocol ball touching the rim of the tumbler, as done did in the figure number 13.17. Vibrate the tumbler by striking it and see how far the ball is displaced. The displacement of the ball is a measure of the amplitude of vibration of the tumbler. And now strike the tumbler gently and then a little harder. Compare the amplitude of vibrations of the tumbler in the two cases. In which case is the amplitude larger? So you have to do this activity. Here Loudness of sound is proportional to the square of the amplitude of the vibration producing the sound. So, say for example, if the amplitude becomes twice, the loudness increases by a factor of 4, and the loudness is expressed in a unit called decibel, in short dB. The following table gives some idea of the loudness of sound coming from various sources. Here you can see normal breathing, say 10 dB, that means 10 decibel, and soft whisper at 5 m, that is 30 decibel, normal conversation 60 decibel, and busy traffic 70 decibel, average factory 80 decibel. So above 80 decibel, the noise becomes physically painful. So 80 decibel, above 80 decibel, the noise becomes physically painful. So noise is expressed in terms of, say, decibel. The loudness of sound depends on its amplitude. When the amplitude of vibration is large, the sound produced is loud. When the amplitude is small, the sound produced is feeble. So the loudness of sound depends on its amplitude. When the amplitude of the vibration is large, the sound produced is loud. And when the amplitude is small, the sound produced is feeble. So compare the sound of a baby with that of an adult. Is there any difference? There should always be difference between the sound produced by the baby and sound produced by adult. And even if two sounds are equally loud, they differ in some way. Let us see now. Say, I wonder why my voice is different from that of my teacher. This is also analytical. The frequency determines the shrillness or pitch of a sound. So if the frequency of vibration is higher, then we say that the sound is shrill. If the frequency of vibration is higher, and then the sound is shrill and has a higher pitch. And if the frequency of vibration is lower, we say that the sound has a lower pitch. Say for example, a drum vibrates with a low frequency, so therefore it produces a low pitch sound. On the other hand, a whistle has a high frequency and therefore produces a sound of higher pitch. Figure number 13.1 as it is shown. Let's see. A bird makes a high-pitched sound, whereas a lion makes a low-pitched roar. However, the roar of a lion is very loud, while the sound of the bird is quite feeble. Here, let's see. In figure number 13.1, frequency determines the pitch of a sound. So this is the drum, and this is the whistle. So, drum vibrates with low frequency. Therefore, it produces a low-pitched sound. Whereas, on the other hand, a whistle has a high frequency and therefore produces a sound of higher pitch. Okay? So, every day you hear the voices of children and adults. Do you find any difference in their voice? Can you say that the frequency of the voice of a child is higher than that of an adult? So, usually the voice of a woman has a higher frequency than that of a man. So, voice of a woman has higher frequency than that of a man. audible and inaudible sounds. Let's see, audible and inaudible sounds. We know that we need a vibrating body for the production of sound. For the production of sound, we need a vibrating body, and can we hear the sound of all vibrating bodies? The fact is that sounds of frequencies less than about 20 vibrations per second, that means 20 Hertz, cannot be detected by the human and cannot be detected by the human ear. So here the sounds of frequencies less than 20 vibrations per second, 20 vibrations per second, that is 20 Hertz, cannot be detected by the human ear. Such sounds are called inaudible. On the other side, sounds of frequencies higher than about 20,000 vibrations per second, that means 20 kilohertz, are also not audible to the human ear. Thus, for human ear, the range of audible frequencies is roughly from 20 to 20,000 Hertz. So this is the range of the audible frequency of the human, 20 to 20,000 Hertz. Some animals can hear sounds of frequencies higher than 20,000 Hertz. Dogs have this ability. The police use high frequency whistles which dogs can hear but humans cannot. The ultrasound equipment, familiar to us for investigating and tracking many medical problems, works at frequencies higher than 20,000 Hertz. So these are all about the sounds and its frequency. And next, let's continue this next page. Noise and music. We hear different types of sounds around us. Is the sound always pleasing? Yes, we hear different types of sounds around us. All sounds are not pleasing. Some are shrill, some are loud sounds, and some are feeble. So many sounds are there, and thus a sound sometimes causes discomfort to you. Yes, sometimes sound causes discomfort to us. Some sounds are pleasant to the ear, whereas some are not. Suppose construction work is going on in your neighborhood. Are the sounds coming from the construction site pleasing? No, it is not pleasing. And do you enjoy the sounds produced by horns of bus and trucks? We don't enjoy the sounds produced by horns of bus and truck. Such unpleasant sounds are called noise. Yes. In a classroom, if all the students speak together, what would the sound produced be called? It becomes noise. Then on the other hand, you enjoy sounds from musical instruments. Say musical sound is one which is pleasing to the ear. Sound produced by a harmonium is a musical sound. The string of a sitar also gives you a musical sound. But if a musical sound becomes too loud, would it remain melodious? If a musical sound becomes too loud, then it could not be a melodious. Then it becomes a noise. So here let's see noise pollution. Noise pollution. You already know about air pollution. Presence of unwanted gases and particles in air is called air pollution. So similarly, presence of excessive or unwanted sounds in the environment is called noise pollution. So noise pollution is nothing, it is the presence of excessive or unwanted sounds in the environment. So can you list some sources of noise pollution? So major causes of noise pollution are sounds of vehicles, yes, explosions including bursting of crackers, machines, loudspeakers, etc. What sources in the home may lead to noise? Television and transistor radio at high volumes some kitchen appliances, desert coolers, air conditioners all contribute to noise pollution. So, say television and transistor, radio at high volume, and some kitchen appliances like pressure cooker and desert coolers, air conditioners all contribute to noise pollution. Yes, we have learned this thing. And next page number 192, let's see. What are the harms of noise pollution? Say, do you know what presence of excessive noise in the surroundings may cause many health-related problems? Say, lack of sleep, hypertension, high blood pressure, anxiety, and many more health disorders may be caused by noise pollution. So, a person who is exposed to a loud sound continuously may get temporary or even permanent impairment of hearing. So here we learn, say, lack of sleep and hypertension, that means high blood pressure, anxiety, and many more health disorder may cause because of the noise pollution. And measures to limit noise pollution. So to control noise, we must control the sources of noise. How can this be achieved? For this, silencing devices must be installed in aircraft engines, transport vehicles, industrial machines, and home appliances. How can the noise pollution be controlled in a residential area? All noisy operations must be conducted away from any residential area. Noise producing industries should be set up away from such areas. Use of automobile horns should be minimized. And TV and music systems should be run at low volumes. Trees must be planted along the roads and around buildings to cut down on the sounds reaching the residents, thus reducing the harmful effects of noise pollution. So these are what about the methods of reducing the noise. So we have to plant trees on any available space, and TV and music system we have to use in a very low volumes. So this last point, let's try to learn hearing impairment. Total hearing impairment, which is a rare, is usually from birth itself. So total hearing impairment in the human, it is usually very rare, but it happens but usually from the birth itself. Partial disability is generally the result of a disease, and partial disability is generally a result of disease, injury, or age. Children with impaired hearing need special care. By learning sign language, such children can communicate effectively because speech develops as the direct result of hearing. A child with a hearing loss may have defective speech also. So, technological devices for the hearing impaired have made it possible for such persons to improve their quality of life. Society can do much to improve the living environment for the hearing impaired and help them live normal lives. So, these are what about the hearing impairment. So hearing impairments, it is usually from the birth itself, and partial disability is generally the result of a disease or an injury or age. So children with impaired hearing need special care, and by learning say sign language, and such children can communicate effectively. So because speech develops as the direct result of hearing, so a child with a hearing loss may have defective speech also. So this time modern technological devices for the hearing impaired have made it possible for such persons to improve their quality of life. So with that, it comes to the end of this video class for today. Bye.